what happens when we travel. So I recently went on a journey, an adventure, a trip, and I really started closely paying attention to what happens in my body when I travel. What happens to my embodiment, what happens to my grounding, what happens to my nervous system, what happens to my senses, what happens to my emotional system. And here's what I found, and I'm sure that you found it too if you really kind of tune into it, is that when we travel, we start to open up all of our sensory perception more. Like we start to see new things, smell new things, experience new things, maybe talk to people that we haven't talked to in a long time, or meeting completely new people, which means that kind of our outwardly system has to be really active. It has to perceive, assimilate, gather information, while our inwardly system starts to run a little bit slower, and it's kind of like waiting for all that information to be integrated, which is really beautiful, because when you are traveling, you get to experience all these new things, and then when you come back, which I have, you start to be able to integrate all those new things. So then your sensory perceptions on the outside start to slow down a little bit, because now you're in your previous, old situation, your own home, and your perceptions can say, okay, I've seen this before, I've smelled this before, I've experienced this before, therefore I don't have to take in as much information. So now your body now starts to integrate all that new information that you had from your trip, which is really quite a beautiful thing. So what I experienced is I went from being grounded to being more ethereal and more kind of in my mind and more kind of in the outwardly perception of my body, into now then coming back and regrounding myself and remembering and integrating that new information. So have you been traveling, and have you had a similar experience? If so, let me know in the comments. If there's completely different, I would love to hear that too, because maybe you have a completely different experience, that you're grounded all the time, or your perceptions are always open. And it's a beauty in that perception, right? Because that's what allows us to feel like traveling is great, right? Because we have kind of all that new sensory information, all that new food, all that new friends maybe, and that's really beautiful. So travel, what does it do to you? Lots of love. Namaste.